What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Avocast Studios. I'm your host, Sir Stormchild. Don't think about it. Today, I'm going to try to explain Eraserhead. I have 3 pages of notes. I'm trying to explain it in the most concise way possible. It's about a guy who's afraid to be a father. The future could crush your balls. That's basically, that's the whole point of this. The great man himself, David Lynch, passed away. Seriously, I love the man's work. I'm always confused by it, and he never explained anything. And sure, I've taken some of that to heart, I guess. But Eraserhead is a brilliant movie. The opening of the movie is basically the act of conception itself. You see his head floating in space, and there's a ball or a planet on top of him. So it visually represents the weight of the world literally being on his head. And then it gets weirder. Then a testicle flies out of his mouth and then implants itself into the planet. And then the guy who's the man in the planet, I call him God, or the mold god. He's sitting out a window depressed, and then he kicks on all the gears and everything starts with Henry walking around a dirty and over-industrialized world where there's pipes going everywhere. There's mounds of dirt everywhere, and you could tell he's a bit awkward. He doesn't act like a normal person, but nobody does in this movie. I don't think you're supposed to. You're like, oh, are they autistic or something? I have no idea. Something's just off enough to be like, what am I watching? What's going on? So Henry goes home. Maybe he's got groceries. Maybe he doesn't. I'm not quite sure what's in the bag. He goes upstairs in a very slow elevator. The lights are blinking. There's dead plants on the wall. He's got things growing in his apartment. There's what I call the hot neighbor from next door.
Are you Henry?
She says, hey.
A girl named Mary called on the payphone and said she's at her parents' and you're invited to dinner.
And he's just like, okay, sure, whatever. Just before he walked inside, he stepped into a mud puddle. And he's got now let his sock dry on top of a radiator. The radiator comes back into play a little bit later. He kind of decides, well, I'm going to listen to a song, skips a few songs, and then starts getting ready. Pieces together the old photograph of his girlfriend that he has, which I guess has her address written on the back of it. When he pulls out the dresser, there's a pot in there that's full of water, so I'm guessing the roof leaks. And then he uses it to kind of pitch coins into a wishing well. Clearly it's going well for him. Cut to him walking away down the railroad tracks, which he crosses. So maybe she lives on the wrong side of the tracks. Maybe he does. It's very much implied. Everything with Lynch is very visual and very purposeful. He gets to her house. He's never been there before. They have a small argument before he walks in the door. She's like, well, you're late. He's like, I didn't even know you wanted me to come. Where have you been all this time?
I didn't know if you wanted me to come or not. Where have you been?
He sits apart from the girlfriend. The mom starts asking him pointed questions like, hey, where do you work? What do you do? That kind of stuff.
Mary tells me you're a very nice fellow. What do you do?
Oh, I'm on vacation.
He tries to act all kind of normal, and you're like, dude, you are not that guy. You're just a weirdo.
Well, I work at Lapel's factory.
Henry's very clever at printing.
The dad comes into the room, says some weird lines, and he's the most animated person in the entire movie. Well, I mean, animated in the happy way. We're roasting chickens. Small little things. Man-made.
We've got chicken tonight. Strangest damn things. They're man-made. Little damn things. Smaller than my fist. They're new.
Don't worry, it gets weirder.
I'm Bill.
Cut to the grandmother sitting in the kitchen, the mom at the sink putting together a salad. She puts the salad bowl into the grandmother's lap, who might have had a stroke or something, and then uses her arms from behind to scoop and mix up the salad. I guess to make sure that she feels that she's still useful, even though she's possibly in a stroke or in some sort of catatonic state. Lights a cigarette for her. The dad's over there basting the chickens with a little painter's brush. Henry and his girlfriend are sitting there, and they're still being awkward. They're being kind of coy, not talking to each other. She still doesn't explain where she's been for an indeterminate amount of time. But there's a dog that has way too many puppies. Well, I say way too many puppies. It's a litter of puppies. It's just what it looks like. But to Henry, it looks very intimidating. They come out with the chicken and the salad, except for the grandma, who's still sitting there by the stove. The father, Bill, says, hey, will you I got this nerve damage in my hand. Can you cut the chickens?
I had an operation on my arm here. All numb.
He gives him a big knife for a little tiny bird.
Just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.
And I think that point is supposed to say like, hey, can you deal with responsibility? How does that, make you feel? What can you do? Basically, even though like he knows from earlier that he works at a lapel factory, and like Bill's a plumber who helped put in all the pipes around town and saw the over industrialization of everything going from parking lot to pavement, essentially.
I've seen this neighborhood change from pastures to the hellhole it is now. I'd put every damn pipe in this neighborhood.
Then the chicken starts to move and bleed, and then the mom rolls her eyes back into her head and starts making weird noises, and then the girlfriend kind of like is silently freaking out. The mom gets up, screams, and kind of like walks off into the kitchen again. The girlfriend follows after her, and the dad is just like, oh, she'll be fine in a moment. You're like, okay, this is weird. So they kind of sit in relative silence, except for him just saying like one line, so what do you know? I don't really know anything, sir. And then they just sit there.
Well, Henry, what do you know?
I don't know much of anything.
So then the mom comes out of the kitchen, asks him like, well, we need to talk. The light bulb in the living room bursts. So like that's no longer a safe haven. He's like kind of trapped in a corner. She's like, did you and Mary have sex? He's like, I don't see why that has to do with anything.
You're in very bad trouble if you won't cooperate.
And he's kind of freaking out about just like, and then she starts licking him and then basically kind of like, giving love bites to his neck. I'm still working on that one. The girlfriend comes in and then pulls the mom off, and then the mom switches back into being stern. And is like, well, there was a baby and you need to get married to her. The girlfriend's crying.
Answer me.
And she's just like, well, is it going to be okay? Are you sure you want would that be okay? He's like, I guess.
You don't mind, do you, Henry?
He starts having a nosebleed. Obviously, he doesn't want to. So far, we don't really know much about Henry. You really don't learn much about the characters really at all. Overall, I don't think Henry is that great of a guy. I mean, she was gone for a couple months. The baby's premature.
That's impossible. It's only
Mother,
been...
they're still not sure it is a baby.
Also, the baby looks like a horse. I just kept calling it horse baby in my notes, of which I have 3 pages of full notes. And look, we're on the next part. I don't think you're supposed to like Henry. The next part, you see Henry interacting with the baby. Henry's the only one that actually cares. It's like, okay, I'll take care of the kid. I'll do what I can for this child of mine. It's mine. Be the man I can, even though my life is crap and I don't have a lot going on, and my girlfriend is fucking nuts. The girlfriend's force feeding the baby. Well, I say force feed the baby because she holds the baby's nose at one point and like tries to, spoon, baby food down its throat, which is don't do that to your kids. Henry's gone out. I thought he was going to work, but then he says he's on vacation, so he doesn't really have a job at this point. Maybe he's on vacation. Maybe he got fired. Maybe he didn't. Don't really know. He's got a little tiny box, and you think, well, he opens it. He's just like, oh, maybe he's poor. Maybe it's a caramel or something, or taffy or something. No, it's a wrapped up little tiny box with another little thing inside of it that I thought was a pepper. Turns out, it's clay, but it might have been like a seed or something. He goes home. He stares at like the floor and is just like, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. And then he starts seeing this woman in the radiator. He doesn't actually see the woman yet. He just sees like the light behind it, which I think is like an escape idea, or maybe the promise of the future, or the industrial age or the atomic age, I think, because he's got like a picture of like an atom bomb next to his bed, right above a plant that's dead. That's not in a pot, but it's just like a pile of dirt next to his bed. And there's another pile of moss on top of his dresser. Like things are just growing in his apartment. So like the outside world is encroaching out on him, and like he just doesn't feel worthy or connected or something like that.
Was there any mail?
No.
Then the next part that happens is everything gets dark and stormy, and the baby won't shut the fuck up. Neither one of them can sleep. He gets up and then secretly puts the seed thing inside the cabinet by itself. I don't know why. She's lying there awake. He tries to touch her shoulder, and she just brushes them off. He's the most worst thing in the world. And she gets up, screams in the baby's face to shut up.
Shut up!
And then locks herself in the bathroom. And he's just like, what the hell's going on? What's up with you?
Can't stand it. I'm going home.
She comes out all clothed, or she's about to grab her stuff.
Well, you'll come back tomorrow?
I'm going to my parents' house. You need to take care of the baby. I just need one night's sleep. He's like,
Why don't you just stay home?
I'll do what I want to do.
like every time they actually have any amount of like communication, it's very hostile to each other. She reaches out from under the bed. It's very awkward because she's just like, you know, like head under her bed, and you see her doing this, and like the bed's shaking. And that's most of the movie. What the fuck is happening? She gets her suitcase and just books it. Cut to the next day. The baby starts crying or stops crying. The hot neighbor comes home. There's several shots of her like when she comes in the home. I guess she's like always coming in late, and she's, you know, just like a free spirit, that kind of thing, or she's just lonely. I don't know. Henry takes the baby's temperature, and then he's like, it comes off normal. He's like, I don't see why this damn kid is crying. And then he looks away. The baby cries again. He looks back, and it's all gross and covered in pus and like measles and whatnot.
Oh, you are sick.
And so he dotes on the kid some more. He sits there in his suit. This is only one of the few things he actually owns. Puts a humidifier next to the baby. The baby, like, it's like gasping for air and not really doing too well. And he obviously he's trying, but like what limited emotions he actually has, he's like, I'll deal with it. You know, it's my kid. Every time he tries to leave, the baby cries every single time. He's like, fuck it. I'll just wait here. And then we see the lady in white. I can only kind of guess who she's supposed to be. I mean, she's obviously in all white and like an atom bomb, but she's got bulging cheeks, so that might just be a deformed thing, but she's also cute. She's very, you know, demure and like, you know, kind of like, you know, being tiny and like dancing all nervous. I guess she's supposed to be kind of idealistic, and she's also on a stage, and maybe it's like the idea of the ideal world, even though it's a little warped, but it's close enough. Then testicles start falling from the sky. And then she tries to avoid them as she's like dancing around and whatnot. But then like the music stops, and she's got this constant grin on her face, and she steps on one and it explodes in a milky goo. Then the music starts playing again. So she does it again. I think she does it like 2 or 3 times. I don't remember. It's been a few days since I've watched it. The way it fades is like, you know, like, is he really thinking about his wife? Is he thinking about his life in its entirety? Is he thinking about like divorce or something like that? That's why it's like, you know, like this brightly lit thing, and then it cuts to black. The girlfriend has come home. She's all sweaty, and, you know, just like she just keeps thrashing around. He's just like, you're pushing me off the bed. Like, you know, give me some room, damn it.
Move over.
And then he starts he's like, oh, there's like something next, like on the bed. And it feels weird. And he pulls testicles out, throws them at the wall. I guess he's like thinking like, you know, somebody stepping on his manhood. Maybe it's the baby. Maybe it's like, you know, like everybody else, he doesn't feel like he's good enough, or, you know, like manly enough. And then the cabinet opens. The clay worm or seed or something starts flipping around and doing this thing, and then vanishes into the shadows of the cabinet. I guess it ends up on the planet, and then it starts zooming around and then making this weird noise as it does that little squeaky noise. Zooms into it, and it's like zooming out like a weird mouth thing trying to eat him. Maybe that's planting the seeds of doubt. And then it cuts to him like sitting on the bed with like growing moss all around him. So the wife is gone. The hot neighbor knocks on his door, or somebody knocks on his door, really. And then he looks into the darkness, and then like there's nothing there. And then she slowly comes out of the darkness. A lot of things are like very paced like that, where it's just like, it's just awkward enough to make you go, okay, we need to cut this. And then something happens. You're like, oh, that's creepy. She's intoxicated. She comes in, and then she's like, hey, where's your wife? She's like, well, I locked myself out of my apartment. Can I stay here for the night?
Where's your wife? Can I spend the night here?
And so they start knocking boots. Rather, they start making out, and then like the bed turns into a hot tub with like the sheets kind of covering over it, and then like they're foggy. There's like a foggy passion, or whatever you want to call it, or like a mist that surrounds it. She looks at the baby. She has a horrified look on her face, but obviously she doesn't want to stop doing the thing she's doing, or that they're doing. At the end of the whole sequence is there's an egg, or a planet, but it's also slightly deformed. I guess it's like from her perspective of like, well, if he created this mutant, you know, horse baby with like some other girl, what will he do to me? What happens if I get knocked up? Like, and she starts being paranoid about that. The next part, which is probably even weirder. And so we turn back to the lady in white, the atom bomb lady. She's on the stage doing her thing. There's still the testicles that are around. Henry somehow shows up on the stage. He touches her. He's just like, hey, are you real? And then like the screen cuts white and has a bit of a static to it. Maybe the thing is like, like if he actually reaches an ideal or something like that, he's being erased. Then she kind of disappears. The moldy god shows up. And scrolls a tree. Well, it's a tank being covered over, and then like there's a tree on top of it. It's a dead tree. I think it's supposed to like say like there's war that's hidden underneath and like the hidden fear, and it's camouflaging itself. And so he backs away into a corner, and there's a little handrail thing. He's kind of like twisting that to kind of stem himself or something. And then his head falls off, and then the tree starts bleeding like profusely. But his hands are still doing the twirly thing. And then like the horse baby's head comes out of his body, and then his head falls through the ground, or it falls through the blood. And then it hits the pavement. And there's a homeless guy who sees it. This little street kid runs by at full speed, steals the head. Kid takes it to this. You don't really know what it is. It kind of looks like the beginning of a hotel, but it might be just a business. Or the receptionist. He's like buzzing the bell, buzzing the bell, buzzing the bell, buzzing the bell. And then the guy comes out and screams at him. That part's pretty funny. Gets right up in his face. Okay, Paul.
Okay, Paul!
Sees that the kid has this head, takes it to this other guy out of a machine or something. He drills a hole into it, essentially taking a core sample of the skull. They put that into this machine, and then you notice that that's erasers, because it's a pencil factory. It's making erasers from his head, so Eraserhead. So I guess like the entire point of that whole thing, that he feels like he's being reused or repurposed, and it doesn't matter what he does in his life, like they'll steal off of his body, and then he'll just be repurposed, not just for the worms, but to make pencils instead in this over industrialized world. A few pencils pop out, grinds it, erases it, and he's like, yeah, it's good to go.
It's okay.
Kid gets paid, and then it zooms in on the hand like collecting all the eraser dust, and then brushes it off into the blackness. And then the main character, Henry, wakes up. He sees acts of violence outside, knocks on the hot neighbor's door, nobody answering. But as he comes back from like knocking on the door, the baby starts laughing at him, like mocking him. Like it's not just like ha ha ha, that's very funny, but like ha ha ha, you're a piece of shit, ha ha ha. And then he tries to lie down. Then he hears her actually in the hall. Oh, that must be her. I'll go check on her, like see if she's home. Maybe I can hit that again. Well, he goes out there. She's with some other dude who's like kind of feeling all up on her. She's just like terrified of him, because when she looks at him, she doesn't see Henry anymore. She sees that gross baby head. And then Henry goes to his cabinet or whatever, his drawer, pulls out a pair of scissors. The baby's like all wrapped in swaddling and whatnot. It's been in swaddling this whole time. It's like very tight. There's like no arms or legs or anything. It's just like the swaddle and a head. And he like cuts it out, and you're like, okay, he's just like, like he's gonna like change the baby, whatever. Maybe like that's why it's uncomfortable. Just cut it off, and that'll be the end of it. No. He ends up like cutting the swaddle off, and then the baby opens up like a turkey, and like there's organs and whatnot, just like kind of the baby's freaking out, and then there's just a bunch of gross stuff happening, clearly still alive. And then he makes the decision to cut out the parts of a baby. Remove the baby, remove his problem. Maybe he can get back to with like his girlfriend, get back with the hot neighbor. Either way, things are going well for him. He has to end something. He has to end one. He's got to end the movie. It's a horror movie. So he kills the baby. The baby starts crying, and it gets louder and louder, and like, the blood starts pouring out, and then like it filling up with like looks like a combination of like grits and oatmeal, starts like, foaming out of it. The baby's head grows really long and like is flickering around in the darkness like a terrified cobra in the background. The lights are flickering on and off. There's electric sparks going that's happening. Then the baby's head grows into this gigantic head and starts, moving around. And and you think like it's gonna, eat him or something. Zooms into like a light bulb, and I thought like, well, it's just gonna eat the light bulb. And that's where like the light bulb cuts off. So the last final shots after the lights go out is Henry standing in the black void with the eraser bits flying behind his head. He sees the planet exploding from the inside and it's hollow on the inside, and the man in the planet is there like grinding away gears, but he's trying to stop the gears, I guess. Beginning part is conception, the second part is death. He's like grinding the gears to make it stop, but he's also very gleefully doing so, whereas the beginning he was just kind of reluctant to do everything for it to start. Then you see like the lady, the atom bomb lady, show up, and there's a look of contentment on both of their faces. Him more like less contentment and like acceptance, I suppose. Cut to black. Cut to the credits. Cut to David Lynch being a fucking genius and me having to try to figure out how to explain this for a half hour. That's basically it for like point for point. There's many like side tangential things you could pick apart. You could watch the movie forever and probably get something different out of it. But essentially, yeah, it's a bad dad scenario. It's about an unwilling father, I guess. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not ready to be a father. Maybe all of that just like exists in his head and how to deal with the situations. Why does he kill the baby? I mean, the baby's kind of just fucking annoying outright. I mean, but if you think like that's your kid, that's fucking terrifying even more. It's a brilliant movie. It's an uncomfortable movie. Things are very unsettling. Much like Hereditary, it's very that where he's like, oh, this is uncomfortable and I'm not quite sure why. He said, as David Lynch once said, like it's his most spiritual movie. I understand that. I totally get where he's coming from. Just the man just being repurposed and like not fitting in. He never really fit in, and he's like, what am I supposed to do here? Oh God, I have a kid. My wife is fucking crazy and leaves me with this premature kid who she didn't even tell me existed, and now I'm forced into this marriage I didn't really want. I thought I was done with this whole bullshit. Her family's goddamn crazy. What am I supposed to do? Like, I don't have a job. I don't have anything going on. The neighbor hates me, even though she had the hots for me, probably because somebody else had the hots for him. That whole scenario. But then now she's horrified by me, but he doesn't really quite understand that. I guess the Atom lady could be like the promise of a better future. The more you look at the future, the more terrifying it can become, and how it could crush your balls. The future could crush your balls. That's basically, I guess, that's the whole point of this. You don't walk away from Eraserhead going, you know what? I had a good time watching that movie. It's like, no, I'm going to go play with puppies now. That's basically what you walk away from going, I don't know what the fuck I saw, but I have to go pet something soft. Also, weird side note, my copy is all in Korean. I don't know why. I mean, I bought it at a local bookstore, but I've seen it 4 or 5 times. I think about it a lot. You don't unsee Eraserhead. So there. That's Eraserhead explained as best of my ability as I can. I'm not always a coherent person. I apologize. My brain's a fucking pinball machine most days. Get in touch with your artistic side. Go make something fun. All right. I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. And later.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?